Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And I am so excited to have this guest here. I'm really appreciative that she's coming on to talk to us. She came forward, wants to provide her insight on Marilyn Manson from the time that she spent with him and what she knows of him, and relate her own experience about what he's like. And she's not here to criticize any of the accusers or anything like that. She's just here to share her story. And so I'm really grateful that she is here with us. And I just want to say hi. This is Pola Weiss.
Hello.
She's very beautiful, as you can see. So I think that, we're going to have a conversation about a number of things. And so there'll be plenty of time for me to ask questions. But I wanted to just kind of throw up on the floor to you at the outset if there's anything that you want to say right now, or do you want to tell our audience, why you're here?
Yeah, I'm here because I was watching everything that was happening, and it really hurts to see a friend get really dragged like that in the press. And I wanted to just get clarity for everybody on that. But personally, for me, like I wouldn't feel right not coming forward, knowing him and knowing who he is. I would have not been able to live with myself if I hadn't stepped forward and said something, because it's just so unjust, in my opinion.
My feeling is that when people watch this interview, they're going to see that you're coming at this from nothing but a place of truth and of conscience. And
Absolutely.
you're not, if you had wanted to get into the limelight, you could have come out months ago, but you're actually
years ago, whatever, but yeah, I'm a very low key person. I keep a very low profile. Like, I got my dose of fame back in the day when I was doing that stuff, but when I was ready to leave it, I was ready to leave it. So yeah, I'm really only here just because I just hate to see this for him. It's so unfair what people have been able to do. They basically like try to, he's gotten railroaded, I think, in a lot of ways. It's not fair to him. He's a person with a career who has a wife and a life and should be allowed to, live and do what he does. But yeah, it's just very sad to me.
So I guess what I'd like to start with is just asking, how long have you known Manson? Where did you meet? Anything like that?
So I've known Manson since he was 22. So we go way, way back. I met him through Trent Reznor. I was hanging out with him a lot. We were buddies, and when he lived at the Tate murder house on Cielo Drive, and he had gone and discovered Manson and had brought him back to, I guess, take him around and meet record industry people or whatever. So I had met him there at the house. So that was how I originally got to know him. So socially speaking. And
you met him, and were you friends for a while, or how did that relationship progress?
No, I mean, we just met socially, so we didn't really stay in touch or anything like that. And then a couple of years went by, and I was modeling. I had gone from I was a student at the time when I had met him at the Tate House. I was a student, and then a couple of years went by, and I had started modeling. And so I had gotten on a casting call for a music video for Matthew Rolston, and I was very pleased to find out that, yay, I landed the principal role in this music video. And then I ended up in the makeup chair, like at 6 a.m, sitting there in my underwear, waiting to get my face done. And like, I looked in the chair next to me, and there he was. And I was like, wow, fancy meeting you here.
So you were doing a different music. It wasn't a Manson music video?
No, it was a Manson music video, but they didn't tell me that at the time. I just had the name of the director.
I got you.
And Matthew Rolston is the director of the video. So that's all I knew, is I was showing up for Matthew Rolston.
And the title of the video for
is Long Hard Road Out of Hell.
Okay. So you get in there, you're not sure, you've got a modeling gig. Right. You get in there and you sit down, and then you see Manson.
Yeah. And it was like, wow, just like old times, right? So it was cool, actually. It was cool. It was actually really different when I ran into him that second time, the second time we actually got to hang out or whatever, because I had met him several times at the Tate House, but we never like hung out just one-on-one or anything like that. So, but so we ended up shooting the video. And over the course of the video, we, got to be kind of chummy, I guess. And then we started hanging out afterwards, and there it is. So.
And so about how long did you, when you reconnected, about how long did you hang out with him?
Like 3 or 4 months, I think,
okay.
Actually.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a fairly significant amount of time.
Yeah, he was just moving to Los Angeles at the time, and so he kind of didn't know anything, didn't know anybody, and I kind of helped him set down roots in the city, and get the house decorated, and just kind of domestic kind of stuff like that. I had a lot of friends in the town, and I knew, like, I had friends that owned shops that had cool clothes and cool things for the house. So, I would take him out and we would go shopping and that kind of thing. And I was just kind of showing him around.
I see. And, just to be clear, the relationship at some point during that time became romantic, right?
Yeah, it did. Pretty much as soon as the video was done, sort of, So we kind of noticed when we were shooting it that there was some chemistry going on. So it kind of just happened like that, which is kind of cool,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like it's like one of those awesome life stories that you can tell.
Yeah, it was interesting, definitely. I didn't see it coming.
And so, we're going to get more into a discussion of what he was like and everything and specific. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, how would you describe him in his relationship to you, or what you saw of him?
He's a very, very nice guy. Like, he is a really kind of nerdy, sweet, unassuming kind of character. He's a gentleman, and he's very considerate. So I would say, he's a guy that opens doors for you, and, very nice, soft-spoken, generally considerate guy. Definitely.
And you said the relationship became romantic almost immediately when you reconnected. And so that would have been, so you were with him romantically for 3 to 4 months then?
Somewhere in the 3 to 4 months range. Right. Yeah.
Right. Which, is long enough to get a sense of someone's personality.
Most definitely. Most definitely. At the time, I had just gotten back from a stint in Italy because I was modeling there in Milan. And I had let my apartment in the city go, and I was staying with my mom and dad in Orange County. So it's like a 45-minute, 1 hour kind of drive from the city. So, I mean, I can definitely say this. Like, one thing I think we really connected over was the fact we were both very focused on our careers at the time. We're both kind of workaholics, I think, a little bit. But so it was very nice, like, in the sense that if I had like an early call time in the morning, like I always could spend the night at his house. So, I mean, I was like spending the night there kind of significant number of nights, I would say, But it was really nice. He was always very supportive of my career and my work. Like, if we went out somewhere, he knew I had an early call time. He was the kind of person who'd be like, hey, we got to go home early. You got to go to bed, So it was like nice. He's very considerate,
Wow. So during this period when you were in a relationship with him, mm-hmm. was he ever abusive to you physically, emotionally, sexually?
Never, not even close to it. He's a really, really sweet guy. He's like, I'd say he's very romantic. He's the kind of person, I think, that to a fault can become putty in the hands of whoever his object of admiration is, I think, So wow. He's very nice like that. No, I never felt like he was never curt or rude or anything like that with me ever. No, not once, not in any way, shape, or form. He's very romantic, actually. So
now, some people have the impression that whenever Manson does drugs, mm-hmm. that he becomes this alternate personality, this Jekyll and Hyde situation. Were you around him when he was under the influence of drugs? And
I was around him when he was partying. I was, and I never saw anything like that, actually. So he was just your garden variety, get your buzz on, and maybe be a little sillier kind of person. Maybe like that's when you could get him to dance or something, but that's about it. So I never saw, and I was around him when he was imbibing and partying. So I never saw anything like that, actually, ever. Never. That's why when I heard some of the things that came out, I was very shocked because I couldn't believe it. None of it aligned with the reality that I knew his behavior to be.
Really? So some of these stories that have been told, there was mm-hmm. never an incident where, he really lost it or he broke a window or something?
No, none of that ever rang true for me. Not at all, no.
Wow.
Not at all. He's a very chill guy, actually. Very chill. Very, like I said, very polite, very considerate, thoughtful, not somebody who speaks in a loud voice even. So it seems strange to me. I'm like, wow, this can't be the same person, or maybe these people are mistaken. I don't know. But yeah, the Manson I know is very different than that. What's been described,
Wow. And you said that you said that he could be putty in the hands of someone that a woman that he cared about or whatever. And I'm curious what would give you that impression? Was that the nature of your relationship, or you saw his relationships with other women and that?
I just know like that's the way he is. He's very much a people pleaser, I think, in that regard. And I think he's the kind of person who he just kind of seemed to me like somebody who kind of gets under somebody's spell in a way, and is the kind of person who sort of has sucker on their back if they're not watching themselves. Like to an unscrupulous female, he would get walked all over, I think, I'm not one of those kinds of people. I'm very boundary conscious. That's the other thing too about him. My experience with him, he's very boundary conscious, like somebody who was very respectful, like never somebody who was ever putting me in a situation where I felt uncomfortable or like that I was being infringed on in any way, shape, or form, ever.
Really?
I think between the two of us, as far as things like that were, like I would be the more assertive of the two, most definitely. But I had always had that feeling from him, like he's kind of a little bit self-conscious, honestly. I think in a way, like even though he's a big rock star and everything else, I think at the end of the day, he still feels like he's that nerdy guy playing Dungeons and Dragons somewhere. He sort of carries that around with him, like his youth, I guess, and so he's not like a jerky, egomaniacal kind of guy at all. He's very, I think, a little bit self-conscious, a little bit shy even. So out of the two of us, I was the more assertive one. And I could see how that would probably be something that he would carry in his relationships. It was like, I don't know, it was funny. Like I was thinking, and I was talking to a friend of mine about this, and I was saying, all of these accusations kind of all add up to basically a lot of people saying essentially that he was exercising a very strong pimp hand with them. And the thing that I always thought was a deficit of the pimp hand, to keep people in line. All these people have been saying that he had a very strong pimp hand. And I was like, the problem with him has always been, and I've always said this to people, I'm like, he has no pimp hand whatsoever. None. His deficit of pimp hand was his weakness, his Achilles heel basically is women, I think, in the sense that he's a pushover.
Wow.
Yeah. And I don't mean that in an insulting or rude way whatsoever.
No.
Because I think it's actually kind of lovely and endearing, honestly, It's very kind of sweet. So, but yeah, he's the kind of guy that could easily be taken advantage of. Most definitely.
Well, I mean, that's a really powerful thing you're saying there, because you're painting the picture of someone who is really diametrically opposed to the image that we've been given in the media of this, like, megalomaniacal.
No, he's the opposite of the diabolical tyrant. That is not him whatsoever. Like I would, like I said, most often I would be the person initiating things, because he's very much like, just always kind of steps back and waits, he's very, very considerate like that.
So even sexually, there've been accusations of rape, assault. Did you ever feel like any of the, you don't have to be specific if you don't want to, but did you ever feel like he was pushing your boundaries on any?
No, nothing like that ever. No, he's very, very, very normal, very, very normal. Like I said, I could see like how it could even be that he's, like I said, no pimp hands whatsoever, so he's like, I would probably be the person initiating things,
Well, what you're saying, it really jives with what another woman has said. I don't know if you've watched Greta Aurora's video where she talks about her weekend with Marilyn Manson, but one of the things that she said, I think is really interesting, that you're saying something very similar, is that he seemed kind of shy and very
empathetic to it. And I think he's very tuned into the people around him, but he's very much like the kind of person that kind of like observes what's going on around him and sort of vibes things out and hangs back and lets you take the first step. Yeah, he's very respectful. That was always my experience with him, even when he was partying.
I see. And now, one of the things that people will sometimes say is that men who are abusive, or people who are abusive, sometimes they will be abusive with one person, but not with another.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, did you ever see any behavior with anyone else, not just with you, any behavior toward women at all that was problematic? And in terms of,
I cannot say that I did, actually. I really can't. I never saw anything like that.
That's really, wow, that's really incredible. I mean, it's just so different than what the media has been promoting about him. I'm so glad you're clearing that up for us.
Yeah, it's been very lopsided. It's very unfair,
Why do you
And
think? Go ahead.
go on. No, you please.
I was going to say, I have to assume that just like you and just like your friend that you're mentioning,
Mm-hmm.
and just like Paula, his ex-assistant,
Mm-hmm.
came forward and said the same things you're saying. That he was a great guy and everything.
Mm-hmm.
There have to be more people out there who know that he's innocent of these allegations, who've also, known him fairly intimately, if not sexually, but who have known him fairly intimately and have spent a lot of time with him. Why do you think that there aren't more people coming forward like you are?
I think it's probably a matter of politics, like in the scene. People probably feel like they don't want to come out on the side of defense for him because there's kind of certain social movements right now, I think, that make people feel like, well, if they were to come out in his defense, that the witch hunt would probably expand onto them, I think. I guess I'm in a different situation because I'm not involved with that whole scene at all anymore. So it gives me that immunity, I guess, where I don't have to worry about not booking a gig or something because of it.
Yes, exactly. And I just want to say, to you, but also to our audience, that there are a couple of people who knew Manson and could speak to his character and talk to me privately and told me that they would like to help, or they would like to come out and state the truth as they know it, but they are afraid. And so I think you're right. I think there are a number of people who are afraid, and legitimately, so.
Yeah, I think so, because it's like, it's a matter of the fact that, once accusations like this are made, you become radioactive, essentially, which is not fair, and it's not right, and it shouldn't be that way. It's like whatever happened to innocent until proven guilty. I don't know, but it doesn't seem to be at play with like the kangaroo court, which is what the social media has become, I think, but it's very unfair. It's very unbalanced. It's really not right, and people have pressures, like professional pressures, like they're afraid to lose jobs, whatever, to come out.
You talked about your friend who had been dating the keyboardist and everything. Have you talked to anybody else, without naming them, but have you talked to anyone else from that group, or anyone else who knows Manson who?
One other person I have talked to, yeah, who was basically of the same opinion I was. So it was kind of strange getting on the phone initially and just saying, yeah, I can't believe this is going on. This is so messed up. And it was like, messed up how? Because you kind of want to tread a thin line, because you want to be sure that the other person means it's messed up in the same ways you think it's messed up, but that's the politics coming into play right there,
Yeah, it's a little bit, it's kind of like playing poker or something. Like you don't really want to give away your hand when you're not sure,
Exactly. But, and I think that going into it, like, my greatest fear would have been like to hear from this person, oh, maybe that they had heard or seen something different than what I had, because then that would have been like, oh, I would have been crushed by that, but no, we're still all of the same mind, because this is like all that we've ever seen is him being a good, decent guy. Like I said, if anything, he's a pushover. And I think if anything, that's the kind of thing that would open you up possibly to being in bad situations with people, maybe, is because he is such a nice guy and people can take advantage of things like that, I think,
Yes. Did you ever see a situation where you felt like he was especially susceptible to that, to like anybody shady in his life while you were around, who seemed to kind of manipulate him, or situations with women when you were around? Or,
like I said, I think he was always very open to being kind of influenced by females in that one way, and that was just something I saw over the years, honestly. As him being a guy, like I said, I think he just falls head over heels for people, and then is sort of, like I said, putty in somebody's hands. And like I said, if the hands are unscrupulous, you never know what's going to happen.
You said that in your sexual, relationship with him, that nothing was ever forced upon you, or you never pressured into anything. I'm curious, consensually speaking, was he a really kinky guy? Like, people make him out to be like into all of this BDSM and just can't wait to tie women up and
no, none of the above. No, none of the above. Like, standard issue, normal person, very normal person.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Nothing wild and crazy. Basically, I think it's probably hard for people to wrap their brains around, but he's really the opposite of his persona, his stage persona. That's who that's the work hat that you put on when you go to work, but that has no reflection on the person he is at home in his own private time. He's a very normal guy, very regular domestic kind of person, in fact, he's kind of nerdy and a little bit brainy, which is like, one of the endearing things about him, honestly. I'm kind of nerdy too, so I get it, like we used to like trade books to read and stuff like that, like that kind of stuff. And yeah.
Wow. Well, and what you're saying, it really jives with what Rose McGowan said in her memoir or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote about their life, and you used the word very domestic,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what she wrote about, is that they had
sort of a June and Ward Cleaver kind of thing. Yeah, definitely. Very, very much so. Not what people would expect, but that's the whole thing, is like, when you are living in the entertainment industry, you're purveying to the public a certain image, but that has no bearing on who you really are. It's just, that's your image. That's what you're selling. That's your product. I think if anything, for somebody that has to come out and always be this provocative, controversial kind of person, as if that's what you're doing for work, don't you want to come home and relax? So basically you're going to be the opposite of that. When you like take off the work face and you close the front door, you're going to relax and just be a regular person, So I think that's one of the pressures, is that actually when you go out, like when I was modeling, there's like a lot of social pressure to like attend a lot of parties. You kind of have to schmooze, like go out and hobnob and rub shoulders with people. It's kind of part of the job. And the same thing when you're in the music industry, you have to go out and meet people. You got to see and be seen. And it's like, when you're in that kind of situation, yeah, you're out there and you've got your work face on, you're out there doing your thing. But like, yeah, you want to go home and you want to be a regular person, you want to have like a place for some sanctuary from that, when you get home, and just be human.
Right. I saw an interview with him years ago. I think it was a Larry King interview. And one of the things that Manson said, to paraphrase him, was that his real personality was very different from his stage persona. And I think that sometimes kind of a stage persona can even be a way to compensate for one's own, deficiencies or shyness. And so it kind of makes sense to me that you would have this kind of awkward person who projects this image that's totally different.
Sure. Absolutely. So yeah, I think there's an element of that going on, but yeah, when he's not in work mode, he is really just a lovely, down to earth guy, honestly.
Now, how old were you when you dated him?
So I was 21.
Okay. So, because, and I brought that up because some people have, who believe that he's guilty, have said that it's possible that he didn't pick on his older girlfriends, or didn't abuse his older girlfriends, but was abusing the younger ones because they were more vulnerable or susceptible or whatever. But you were 21.
Sure. And I was 21, so that's pretty young,
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about the infamous music.
Oh, the infamous video. Yeah, this is a good one because, like, that's the other thing, is like, first of all, I heard somewhere that I was dead. So guess what? Hi, I'm not dead.
Yeah, let me just briefly just kind of summarize for our audience. I know a number of people in the audience already know what we're talking about, but in one of the lawsuits against Manson, it was alleged, or actually in a couple of them, it was referenced that there was this video that he had, this personal home movie that he had made, and it's described almost as a kind of, in the lawsuits, as almost a kind of a snuff film, in a way that there is this young girl, makes it sound like she's underage, this young fan of his who was exploited and forced to do bad things in this movie, and maybe even was pistol whipped, and et cetera, et cetera. So can you just tell us, what was this video? How did it come about? What was the reality of it for you?
Okay, so the video was actually, so Manson was interested. He wanted to branch out into like filmmaking. This was something we had talked about a couple times. And, because he is a creative, artistic kind of guy. And so I think that was like something that he had never delved into, that he was interested in seeing about how that would work out as a form of expression for him. And so we had discussed it, and he had come up with something called a treatment. So a treatment is something you write before you make like a music video or something. It's basically like a concept idea, right? So that you say, well, there's going to be 4 people in a room and they find a bear and they shoot the bear and eat the bear or whatever it is, so he had written up treatment, and, he had scripted up some general lines, and he had said he wanted to be basically something. It was resonating from the fact that he had been experiencing like death threats and stuff like this. And so I think that's something he said he was processing kind of through the film. So he read me the treatment, and we went over like the lines and everything and the general concept and the goal of it all, right? And so we came to that agreement that we were going to try to pull this thing off, and so so he had me show up at the place at his house, and the band was there, and they knew me obviously, but they weren't sure what was going on. And so he had given me a piece of art and wanted me to bring it to him, and he was like, okay, this is what you're going to do. You have to pretend like you're like a crazed fan and you figure out where I lived. So I was going to act like this fan who knew where he lived, and I was going to ring the doorbell and be like, look, I brought you this piece of art, And it all kind of devolved into a game of like truth or dare, and got kind of crazy from there. But from what I understand from this, the lawsuit, from what I've heard, is people are running around saying, oh no, she drank his urine or something like that. I'm like, no, I didn't really drink pee. And I supposedly, like, I guess that I was supposed to drink pee, and then I made him drink the pee. No, neither of us drank pee. So there's this funny thing, like with movies, it's like, yeah, they can make things look like that in a movie, but it's not really happening. I kind of was offended by the fact that I was basically being described by all these people as this person with no agency, who is this vulnerable victim and all this other stuff. It's like, no, that was a professional job for me. I got paid, it was on the books. I got paid. It was all discussed ahead of time. I knew what I was doing going into it. For me, it was actually kind of cool because I had only been doing like modeling. That's kind of 2-dimensional. You just get photos taken of you. You don't get speaking parts. So for me, it was interesting in me branching kind of out and sort of pushing my own boundaries, in the sense that I had never like actually had the confidence to try on an acting role whatsoever. But I kind of had a method when I was modeling that basically before I started shooting pictures, I would just ask the photographer, okay, so who am I supposed to be today? Like, what role do I need to get into? And I would just kind of like try to get into the headspace. So I did the same thing that day. And I just kind of let myself get into the role and, start channeling the character. Right. And so he was doing the same thing, I think. And so I can say this much too, is that there's absolutely no possible way that I could have ever put myself into that headspace to kind of be this role if I had had any kind of fear of him or felt threatened by him in any way. As a matter of fact, I felt like completely and totally safe. That's why I felt like I could be in this kind of vulnerable situation, or even make believe I was vulnerable, because I was so safe with him. And I had no sense that he would ever harm me at all. No way. So I was not pistol whipped either, by the way, or afraid or abused or degraded. Like, just because somebody does that in a movie, that doesn't mean it's in real life. Like, we spent the rest of the evening hanging out. Like, when we were done shooting it, we spent the rest of the evening hanging out and just having a good time and listening to Iron Maiden records, very normal.
And he definitely didn't kill you because you're here.
No, I have not returned from the grave to give this interview.
No.
So, yeah, no, I mean, and I was not hit or struck in any way, shape, or fashion, or forced to do anything, or made to do anything, or threatened in any way that I felt afraid or fearful at all. Nothing at all like that.
So just to be very clear, you were not underage.
I was 21. Yeah.
21. It was a professional job.
Paid professional gig. Yep.
There were other professional people around.
Absolutely. Joseph Coltis was there. He was the one who was shooting it. I think if Manson had had his brothers, he would have shot it too. He would have shot it as well, because it was his baby. But at the same time, he was going to star in it, so he couldn't do both,
Right.
So
it was a professional job. You weren't underage, and
no.
You feel like you in no way were.
I actually enjoyed it, because it's like I felt like I was able to like really give into the character and get into character, and we just started just kind of really rolling with it. It was pretty awesome, actually. It was really cool. And it's funny because from what I understand, it's very believable, I guess. Like, I gave a very believable acting job. So I'm like, gosh, I'm really kicking myself, because actually over the years after I had retired from modeling, I was offered some actually kind of big acting roles, and I turned them down. You know why? Because I was like, I'm not a formally trained actress, because I was thinking to myself, I couldn't pull that off probably. But it's like, had I known, but I was so convincing that people would think that I was dead somewhere. I probably should have taken those gigs, you know.
And
But,
I mean, I hate to be a downer and agree with you, but yeah, you probably should have.
yeah, but you know, it's okay. Oh,
I know that you're enjoying very much fulfilled in this next act of your life. So
yes, most definitely.
okay, so yeah, not you were not exploited, you were not underage.
No, I didn't feel like degraded, humiliated, or anything like that. No, it was make believe. It was, you know, it's called role playing. It's role playing. That's what you're doing when you're like when you're in character. You're playing a role. You know. When he came up with the idea, he just discussed with me if I was interested in helping him with this project, and I was like, yeah, okay, sure. And then we made the time for it, and we figured out the fees and everything, and you know, we acted in it together, and it didn't get distributed, but actually parts of it were actually used, I guess, in the end of a video, Dead to the World, which was it was a VHS of a live show, I guess, and he used parts of it in the outro, I think, for that.
Sit still. Sit still.
Jesus loves me from the Bible tells me so.
Say it.
Yes, Jesus loves me from the Bible tells me so.
So he asked me to do an acting job, and I did it, and it was used for the same purposes that a commercial film will be used for, you know? So if he hired you to do some film work, you got the film work. Yeah.
And so he wasn't, as far as you can see, he wasn't in the habit of dangling fake jobs or the promise of fake jobs.
No, not that I'm aware of. No.
Now,
as a matter of fact, there had been some discussion actually in brevity about possibly having me do the video for Apple of Sodom actually as well. But I actually had to go because at the time I had been promised to go to Paris for a work stint.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been putting it off for a couple of months, and kind of my agent was riding my ass about it. Like, you're supposed to be in Paris like last month. What's going on? And I was like kind of just busy enjoying myself and not going to Paris like I should have. So, but yeah, so I did end up eventually going to Paris. So I wasn't around to stick around for that because I had other things cooking that were kind of more important, you know, and I had already racked up enough videos. So I did that video for Long Hard Road Out of Hell, but I also did the Push It video for Garbage. And I did another video for that band Cracker. It's Euro Trash Girl. I was in that one too. And I also did, and this is the funny part, I did an R&B video.
You did an R&B video?
I did.
Do you remember what's the name?
The band's called, they're like a boys to men kind of band. And the band's called Portrait. And I think the song's called Call Me.
Okay.
And it was pretty cool. I got to dance around and act like a fly girl. It was pretty rad. That's just all the fun you get to do. So yeah, I had kind of done enough music videos, and I needed to get back to Europe because I had some stuff like big campaigns that were waiting for me essentially. So.
Well, I'm going to find some shots from those music videos and try to put them
absolutely.
So you can see you because I don't want this. I mean, this video is not just about Manson, but also, I mean, you've had such an interesting experience in the entertainment industry as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's definitely an adventure, you know. But I think it's also what you make of it too. You know, it's like it depends what you kind of bring from yourself, what you bring into it. You know, like a lot of people go into it and they don't have like a certain sense of their self. And even though I started modeling and stuff when I was like 19, which for modeling is like a dinosaur age to start. Like a lot of girls start when they're 15 or 16. But I'm really glad I started when I did because I wasn't open to anybody else's opinion about who I needed to be or what I needed to do. I was very, very, very sure of myself and who I was. So I think it's like anything else. If you have good boundaries, you're going to have better results, you know, because that way you don't feel the pressure to be overly molded by people around you, which is something that happens with modeling. Because I think, you know, every day you're basically renting out your body, really. And you're like asking a photographer you become their medium for their art, like the same way like a sculptor has clay, you're the clay, you know? And if you don't have a very centered sense of who you are, you're probably going to like maybe lose your place or figure out, or, you know what I mean? Like lose sight of who you are, you know? So if you don't have a very certain sense of who you are and kind of be cool with yourself and know who you are and know also because of that, like what you will and won't do, you know, and what you're willing to work with and what you think is acceptable things. Like for me, honestly, like I have I had a great reputation. I had a lot of photographers that would just book me without casting me because they had worked with me a lot before, and they knew that like I'm the kind of person that will do crazy things to get a good shot. Like I will be barefoot in the snow and smiling because like I'm like, yes, we're gonna make this amazing picture together, you know. But that's just for me because I was there to get great pictures, you know, and the photographers there to get good pictures, and we're all in the same, having the same goal together, you know. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely something. It's a slippery slope. If you get into it and you don't know who you are or what your limits are, you could probably get into trouble. I can see that, definitely, because I mean there are unsavory people in the industry, you know, and that's the thing too, is like I know kind of predatory men. When you're a model, like, you know, I used to go sometimes on 8 to 10 castings a day, depending on like what was up, and that's a lot of people you have to go and meet. And there are definitely, not everybody's on the up and up. There are people that are unwholesome sorts out there that are, you get exposed to when you're modeling, because you have to meet all these strangers and you find yourself in a working situation with all these people. So, I mean, I know predatory people, and I can tell you this Manson isn't one of them, you know? You know, and I feel like I've been around the block enough times to know the difference, you know, because of just being in the industry, you know?
Mm-hmm. I keep saying, wow, just because it's, you know, you're so sure of what you're saying, and it comes across as being very genuine.
I have total conviction in everything I'm saying. I have total conviction, you know, like I'm not here to speculate about what anybody else, you know, experienced, but I know what I experienced. And that's why I was like, this is crazy. You know, for me, it just really doesn't align with the reality of my experience at all. Mm-hmm. And it's not because I'm naive or somebody who turns a blind eye to bad behavior or anything like that. Not even like, you know, like I'm pretty particular with what I'll like tolerate from people around me, you know, and he was definitely somebody who never made me feel disrespected in any way, shape, or form.
I'm sure that you saw him relate to employees. And what I wanted to ask
naturally
is, again, another of the accusations was that he was abusive to his employees, to his staff, and that in fact one of the accusers said that basically everybody around him sort of lived in terror of his next outburst or his next insane demand or whatever.
I never saw anything like that. That was never anything I saw. And you have to remember too that I had always this line of communication with my best friend who was with the keyboardist, right? And if he had been doing this kind of crazy tyrannical behavior, I would have heard about it, because my best girlfriend would have been bitching to me about it, because she would have caught, you know, like where they say shit rolls down the hill, right? You know, so like if he was going to get exposed to something like that, she probably would have caught it secondhand, and I would have had to listen to it, because that's what girlfriends are for, right?
Right. No, for sure. So I know that people will be curious about why the relationship ended. I don't, as much as you or as little as you want to say, but how would you describe the end of the relationship?
So, like I said, we were both very focused on our careers. And I had been putting off this trip to Paris for like a while, and my agent was kind of on me about that. And it's kind of a funny thing. It was sort of serendipitous, but yeah, so I was actually with him at the premiere to the movie Gummo. And that was actually the night that he met Rose McGowan. And it's funny because, I mean, I was there with him. We were there together, but you know, I just kind of saw that, and I was like looking, and she kind of made a beeline and came on over, and I was like, that's interesting. And I was like, well, you know, I kind of have other things to do, because it's like, I don't know. I just don't do that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not going to like, it's not worth it to me. So I was like, you know, didn't I have a trip to Paris to take, you know? So I just took off and I went to Paris, actually.
I gotcha.
I kind of think in the moment I like thought about it, I'm like, maybe I lost track of my goal right now, you know, like, cause I did kind of, I was putting off a trip that I should have taken. And I wasn't super surprised to find out like a month later that she had moved in with him. I was like, wow, imagine that, you know? But it was okay, because, you know, like actually everything between he and I was very cordial, and remained cordial and has remained cordial between us. So we never had any kind of weird parting of ways or anything. Actually, there was a period of time when he was trying to get a hold of a photographer that had shot him for the cover of Spin, a guy by the name of Andrea Jacobi. And at the time, I was actually living with him. And so he was trying to get a hold of him and couldn't get a hold of him. So he actually ended up going through my best girlfriend and getting our number from her. And, you know, he called up at the office and was like, and I went, hello, who's this? You know, and it was just, no, we stayed friends. Everything was always okay. Like, we never had a reason to not be friendly to each other. There was never anything negative there never really was a parting of ways. We both just were busy and had things to do, you know?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's a nice way to end. Every relationship should.
Yeah, but I mean, like there's so few people in this world that you meet that are really super cool that you really click with. And just because you don't click romantically doesn't mean you have to like shunt them out of your life, because generally speaking, if they're good people, they're good people, and you keep them around just on that basis, right? It's like, just because someone can't fulfill all your needs in this one way doesn't mean you want to discard them completely. It just doesn't make sense. There's not enough cool people in this world to do that with everybody.
Amen. There are not enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I'm curious, where did you live? Or I'm sorry, where was he living during the period when you were dating? Like, not the address, but like, what kind? Was it a house?
It was a house. It was a big house in the Hollywood Hills.
Okay, so this was
Yeah.
not when he was at the apartment over the liquor store. This was
No. It was a very big house in the Hollywood Hills, multiple stories, kind of fancy, large place.
So again, one of the things that's come out in the allegations is that he liked to keep everything so dark that people would have to wear cave lamps, headlamps to get around the house.
Spelunkers.
No.
No, I never experienced anything with that warranted spelunkers. But I will tell you, I mean, I personally am not a huge fan of really brightly lit areas, but I mean, I think I'm just a little bit, I'm a little photosensitive. My eyes are light. So I'm one of those people, I have to wear sunglasses until the sun goes down, definitely. And I am big on keeping my curtains drawn, but that's just because, I kind of like my privacy and stuff. And I think I heard somewhere too, that there was a lot of complaints about the thermostat setting in the house. And I have this much to say to people like that. Like, if you are in Los Angeles is pretty warm. It's kind of generally warm. It's like, on Christmas, it may be 72 to 74 degrees outside, but that's not counting if you're standing in the sun and it's even warmer. And you got to merit. And this is one of those things I love LA, and I kind of miss LA, but I don't miss the fact that everywhere you go, you're sweating. So your makeup is like running down your face. Like, that's never a good thing. And so, yeah, I keep my thermostat kind of low too. So, and if you tend to be somebody who likes to wear like leather jackets and fur coats and stuff like that, it's really good to keep the thermostat low, because then you can like look fabulous and keep your face looking right too. Otherwise you're going to be like a sweaty mess. So, I mean, at worst, what do you do? Put on a cardigan? Like, if I'm at somebody's house and it's a little chilly for me, I would probably put a jacket on or some socks or something. That would probably be what I would do. And yeah, I never experienced this aspect.
I feel like it was like you were in a kind of an intentionally designed like torture situation where that he was trying to.
No, I can't say that was ever my experience. No, I can't. Like I said too, I never experienced any kind of sense that he was trying to direct how I appeared or have anything to do with what I looked, other than when we were like, getting together for like the video, and they were talking about like what the general concept for the video was. But outside of that, no.
So he had no requirements or expectations for how you would wear your hair, how you would dress.
No, actually, he was always he's, like I said, he's a gentleman. He's a nice guy. I can't think of one time he was ever critical of my appearance. He was always just, you look really lovely. He's a gentleman. He has good manners, so he always was very appreciative of things like that.
What about sleeping? And again, some of the accusations are that he would force a kind of sleep deprivation on his accusers. He wouldn't let them sleep. He would wake them up. He would yell at them if they tried to sleep. You never experienced any of that?
I can't say that I did. No. I don't know. Maybe I can keep the same groovy hours as he can or whatever. But actually, but that's really not true. Like I said to you earlier, though, it's like I was working a lot at the time when we were hanging out. And so when you are modeling, you need your beauty sleep. You actually really do. If you can't stay out all night and party and all that nonsense, and then like expect to go to work in the morning and look okay. So like I said, he was very respectful of my work and what I was doing, as much as I was respectful of whatever he had to do. Like, you just have to be understanding that you meet somebody and this is what they do for a living, you be okay with it, So no, I never experienced being woken up in the middle of the night or anything wild like that. No.
And you already said that he was, to paraphrase, kind of vanilla or standard when it came to sexual
Absolutely.
stuff. But you never.
Yeah. Like I said, I feel kind of bad. I'm like, oh, I hate to burst the mystique. I kind of feel guilty. Like, I feel like I'm like, and I'm not a big fan of telling tales out of school either. It's not my style. It's like I kind of have too good of manners for that. But yeah, no, very standard issue, very normal guy, very vanilla, nothing wild, nothing crazy. Sorry, I hate to like let everybody down, but
and it's kind of ironic or funny, or maybe not funny, but however you want to put it, that now because of this situation, that, it's a good thing for people to hear that Manson's maybe kind of boring, or not boring, but, a little vanilla and stuff.
I guess.
And
Yeah.
so,
I mean,
go ahead.
he's a very normal guy. And yeah, I mean, like I said, when you're living that kind of lifestyle though, like I said, like, there's a lifestyle where there's a lot of pressure put on you to always appear a certain way in public. And like I said, I mean, we both he and I both had that kind of thing going on because of what we were doing for a living. If you're both selling your image, then you have to, like, present yourself in a certain way all the time. So when you get home, it's a major kind of need for balance in your like work life and real life, but yeah, like we were prone to do things like go to IKEA, like go to California Pizza Kitchen, like normal people stuff. Like I remember this one time being at IKEA with him. He bought these ridiculous fuzzy red slippers that I couldn't talk him out of.
I wish we had a picture of that.
Yeah, right. So, but yeah, eat your hearts out. Imagine that man, that scary dude in those fuzzy red slippers, So he is like I said, he's very chill. He's very sweet.
And did he ever try to isolate you from your family and friends or anything like that?
No, absolutely not. Never. Nothing like that. Like we were very respectful of each other's like kind of lives. Like I said, we both were very focused on our work, but no, there was never anything like that. Never, like, and most of the time, like he had people around all the time, whether it was Jordy or whoever, he had friends around. I had my girlfriend around, like, he never tried to isolate me from anybody. No, never, not once.
Manson has said before in an interview, I'm sure you've read this, that he's flypaper to I don't remember the term he used, to disturbed women or crazy women or whatever.
To damaged women. Yeah.
And obviously, anybody can tell by this interview that you're not in that category. But I'm curious though, did he ever say anything like this to you? Like, did he ever comment on his romantic history, or that he was prone to these kinds of relationships or anything?
So when I first met him, he actually was with his girlfriend, Missy, at the time. And I think he just like had, I don't know. I always got the feeling that he kind of was a little bit Captain Save-A-Ho, maybe, to put it like in a way, like that everybody probably understands. He's like a guy that like, you can just see being one of those people who's a little bit of a white knight, like when there's like the damsel in distress, because he is kind of this romantic sort of guy. And, yeah, I could see how he's Captain Save-A-Ho. So he kind of like, I think, falls for troubled women, damsel in distress. I think that's probably something he does. Yeah.
Did he ever bite you until you were black and blue all over?
No, he never bit me in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, he never bit you?
He never bit me.
Oh.
Not in a way that I recall. Nothing that stands out like in
right.
my mind. Like, I mean, maybe if it was some nibbling or something, but I would probably be equally guilty of that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's not an abnormal thing during sex. But that, again, that was one of the things that some people were saying.
Nothing notable. No, I can't say so.
Now, some people have brought up that he admitted in an interview that when he and Evan Rachel Wood broke up, that, he had called her, I don't know, however many times, like 100 times or something, and that he cut himself and so forth. And I'm not saying, and none of that, by the way, is abuse of her. Right. But, I think that people have a hard time. People hear that and they think, oh, well, if he was really passionate, or if he was really like like really revved up like that, then maybe he did other things. Maybe he raped people or he hurt people or whatever. What do you make of that statement, that admission by him that he?
So something I think that I could say, I think I observed around him is, he's very much somebody, I think that when he's around, like, probably somebody like the object of his admiration or whatever, there's a side of him, like he's kind of a little bit like a little boy, and there's a side of him that's very like, gentle, but I could see how if he was in a situation like that, where he was rejected like that, maybe that if anything, he was, being self-abusive, if anything, right. I think in that situation, but I think that's the part of him that has probably always had like a little bit of like imposter syndrome, maybe because he was this nerdy kind of social outcast. And then like I said, even though he became big and famous and important or whatever, but at the end of the day, he still feels like that guy who should be in the garage with his 8-sided die playing Dungeons and Dragons, Mm-hmm. So I think that there's probably that aspect of his personality too. And like I said as well, he's a softie. He's a pushover. He's the kind of person who, if anything, was probably kicking himself, wondering what he had done wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think that as far as the series,
and he is that romantic personality type too, like the head over heels type, who, like I said, that's the thing is, I think that has been to his detriment, is that when he's like sprung on somebody, he will overlook all sorts of things, and it's like, she can do no wrong. It's like, there's an element of about that to him, which is kind of charming when you think about it, because it's like, all or nothing, right?
Yeah.
But I cannot imagine seeing that channeled towards like rage or anger or anything like that. He's not that type. Like, I could almost make sense of it being more that something he would turn in on himself, really, honestly, like what you just said.
Right. Well, yeah, thank you. Is there anything related to the accusations or what's being said about him that I haven't covered that you want to mention?
Let me think. I didn't really want to speculate on anything that anybody else was saying, really, other than to say that my experience was very diametrically opposed to that, I think, really. And I want to be clear too that I take violence against women very seriously, and I think it's like an important thing, and I think people need to be taken care of if they've had an experience like that. And I also want to say that I encourage people, if they have an encounter like that, to get help, go to the authorities, and find someone you can talk to, because it's definitely a bad thing. And I would never think it's okay by any means, but at the same time, I find it hard to believe, that these kind of things would have happened in a setting with him. I just don't see it,
Did you ever hear any stories from others about him doing these
Never.
things, reputable people about him doing stuff like this?
Never. Like I said, and my best girlfriend was, literally like that close to him all those years, and she never saw anything like that either.
For people who will say, well, she's really not said much of anything, bad about him. How do we know that she's being honest? Is there, what character flaw could you throw out there for us, that Manson, that you feel comfortable saying, is that what's one of his like weaknesses, or what's one of his problems in terms of his character that you observe? Is there anything?
Well, like I said, I think he's a little bit insecure and a little bit dorky, really. I mean, that account for something. I mean, I think it's kind of cute, but that's just because I'm kind of dorky too. But yeah, I mean, I would say those two things would be things I would ascribe to him, yeah, honestly, and being a little bit of a chump, maybe. I mean, that sounds terrible. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I feel bad saying that, but he's a little bit of a chump because he's a pushover for girls. And like, like his weak spot is girls, I think, like women, like he's silly like that,
I think we can,
the starry-eyed dreamer,
Yeah. I again just want our audience to know that you did not seek out the limelight here, that you're very reluctantly coming forward.
I am indeed, but I'm glad. And like I said, I just felt like I wouldn't have felt right if I hadn't said something. So,
Well, your conscience can be clear. And also, I think that people who watch this interview are going to be very clear on what you're doing and why. And I think it'll be very well received. So, yes.
I hope so.
So thank you so much. Yeah. And to our audience, thanks for tuning in. And as you know, these types of videos are controversial. So anything that you want to drop in my PayPal or Patreon, it takes a lot of effort and time to do these videos. And so I'm so grateful for everybody who's watching. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Check out my other videos on Manson's Innocence. I've done hours of videos in which I break down the accusations and go over the lawsuits and the interviews, the accusers and everything, and talk about why Manson is innocent of these allegations.
All right, reason one, Marilyn Manson is innocent. Despite the girls claiming that there's, scars, there's no photo evidence and there's no medical record. So that's a big issue. The evidence that has been shown by one girl, she showed pictures of, she said, were whip marks, but they were clearly from her skin being tied. It was questionable at the very least. Reason 2, Marilyn Manson is innocent, is that the girls were actively recruited by a woman called Ilma Gore. Ilma Gore is the mastermind behind this whole movement, guys. Ilma Gore is Evan Rachel Wood's girlfriend, and Ilma Gore is the woman that recruited all the girls that are making these accusations. Anyway, she can go for herself. They were actively recruited by this woman, emailing them, and she's some sort of political activist. Reason 3, Marilyn Manson is innocent and the accusers should not be believed, is that the one girl, Greta Aurora's story, that was actively recruited by Gore. So she tried to recruit Greta Aurora, and she told her story. You know, she had only good things to say about Marilyn Manson, but despite her saying good things, they misrepresented it as, and made her out to be underage, made her out to be like innocent and didn't know any better, when this girl was of age and was very into hooking up with the rock star and god of creativity that is Marilyn Manson, you know, or devil, maybe not god, maybe devil, but is the devil a god in his own right? Anyway, reason 4, the accusers are foolish and Marilyn Manson is innocent. All of them have flailing careers or non-existent careers. One of the girls, Ashley, did a photo shoot for People magazine. It looked horrific, like it's just like what was the concept about, and it was ridiculous. And then the other girl, Chloe Black, released a song the same day or the day after the whole accusation thing came out. It was weird. And then Esme Bianco posts the surviving Marilyn Manson thing as a credit. So this is next level, like narcissism, dude, or delusion. Like, ugh. Reason 5, Marilyn Manson is innocent. The stories of abuse all sound the exact same. Like they hit all the same trigger words, you know, to make mothers at home go, that's all. It sounds all ghostwritten, dude, by somebody professional or semi-professional, but very manipulative, you know? Yeah, they worked, and even they've even admitted that, yeah, they worked together, building their statements together. They worked on producing their statements together. That's pretty fucking nuts if you ask me. Ashley Morgan is the one that admitted to the stories, working on the stories with all the other girls. And then reason 6, all these girls, all these accusers of Marilyn Manson should not be believed and Marilyn Manson is innocent, is that Dita Van Teese, Rose McGowan, they'll come out saying that Marilyn Manson never did anything to them, you know?